Yes. Uhuru. Yeah. We used to say the word Uhuru. It's not just because we want to learn Swahili. I think we should learn Swahili because we need to talk to each other. But it was a time you would say Uhuru, you're that person. The British will look for you and kill you because you say Uhuru, you mean you want to be free. Remember the status of Africans until the late 50s were slaves. Simple as that. You could be shot, you could be killed, you could be jailed, just like that. And for you to say you want to be free, it was like something that shook the world to the point that the British Prime Minister, Harold Wilson, I don't know if you heard about that name, he went to Africa to see for himself. Are the niggas serious about freedom, really? Because nobody believes Africa can be free or can stand up for freedom and shake the whole colonial system. So the British Prime Minister left England, went to Africa. From South Africa to Egypt, he toured all Africa. And he came back in the House of Commons and spoke to them. And he said, there's a new wind of change in Africa. And Uhuru, coming from the Mao, they're the one who said it. And they're the one who basically put Kwame Nkrumah on the path. As you know, Kwame Nkrumah is the one who inspired Lumumba. So we said Uhuru because we are serious about being free. Nothing else will do for us. We want to be free. We also say that, just to remind people who we are African people. That's why we say that too. Other people can use other words, WhatsApp, jam or stuff like that, but it does not mean free. It doesn't mean you're Africans. But we want to say we're Africans, but we want to be free. That's the starting point. If you're not talking about freedom, that's not really a good place to be. And Malcolm X said, if you're not prepared to fight for your freedom and to be free, you should remove the word freedom from your vocabulary. And I agree with him. Because all of us talk about election, don't we talk about democracy, election all the time. And the election is something that's being used, to hoodwink us, basically. But before we go any further, I just want to acknowledge our brother here from Guinea-Bissau. I think we should welcome him because Guinea-Bissau is one of the places that gave us the great Amilcar Cabral. If you have not read about Amilcar Cabral, you should go on the internet, Amazon, wherever, buy the book. You will come out with that book as, changed person. So can we just, Robinson. And when we say we will come him, it's not just one person more in the room. We would have to understand this before we go any further. In Africa, whenever somebody or some organization or some leadership emerges for the struggle for freedom, you know what they do first? They bring what? Is that what they bring first? Tribe? Oh, you want to join that strike? That strike is the strike of the Mongol, We are no Mongol, we are something else. That's how they do it. But this is something on our way. We want to be free. On our road to freedom, you don't need a tribe. But the problem is not really the tribe. It's what? Tribalism. That's what is waiting for us. Because tribalism undermines our consciousness. For example, in the Congo, what Lumumba was trying to do? Lumumba was trying to give us national. Okay, you know what? I'm not sure I know how to spell that word by now. What is it? Is that consciousness? Is that like it?
Yeah, I think you're doing it good. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Lumumba was fighting for this. Lumumba saying, if you're going to fight colonialism in the Congo, you cannot fight it as Congo or Mongo or Muswahili or Muluba or Chitetela, something like that. You're going to fight it as one people. So if it was an organization to give people what we call today, depending where you are, people call it black nationalism, Congo nationalism, whatever it was. But around the world, they recognize Lumumba as what? As a black nationalist leader. That's what they saw Lumumba. Black nationalist leader. But we don't call him like that. We call him an African internationalist leader. But we come to that. the reason we're saying that is that the fight of Lumumba was just in the beginning. He didn't complete his struggle. And as you know, he died, he was 35 years old. And the question of national consciousness, basically, are you sure it's one S or two S here? Consciousness.
One SAM and two SAM.
The question of national consciousness was unfinished question. We never finished that. It's a question that was left unresolved, sans conclusion. The question of national consciousness. And today, where we are, what we're trying to do is pick up the question, develop the question where Lumumba left it, so we can complete that question. So we are not fighting for tribalism. We already know tribalism is basically defense of imperialism, defense of capitalism, defense of parasitic capitalism. A tribalist is someone who will say to you, the enemy is your brother, your sister, but not the imperialist. So you'll be having war between ourselves. The target will be now one of us. But before that, the masses are saying the white man is the problem. So the target is clear. All over Africa, the white man must go. And the tribalism comes, and they say the target is not the white man. The target is those from the north, that should not be in the south. Those from the east should not be in the west, something like that. Now, we have developed a national consciousness, but it was incompleted. Why it was incompleted? Because the consciousness we had was the consciousness that was confined or defined by the Berlin Conference. If I was a Congolese nationalist, it was no a history of consciousness that I had from the past. It's a history of a reflection to the struggle I had with the Belgian colonialists. So you had Cameroonian nationalists, you had a Haitian nationalists, you had a Black American nationalists, all this kind of nationalism. But the question now is, we are in a process of saying basically, if you don't develop, if you stop yourself at the, what we call Berlin national consciousness, what's going to happen? You're going to lose. Why are you going to lose? Because you are not fighting a single colonial nationality. You're not fighting the Belgian. History in the Congo already has shown we were fighting the US, the French, the Portuguese, the South African, everybody. So it was not a question of being Congolese. It was a question of identifying the whole system and then respond directly to the whole system. So what I'm trying to say basically, our consciousness cannot be defined from the Berlin Conference. It cannot be. If it does, what happens is that there will be no difference between tribalism and us. The only thing will be, I'll be a Congolese. Instead of saying, I am a Mutetela or something like that. That's the only difference. But if you say, then your nationality is a Congolese nationality, you will stack. This does not mean people coming to you as a Congolese nationalist or Cameroonian nationalist, you should turn them away. No, you're going to work with them, but struggle with them to make them understand the struggle is to free Africa and to achieve one African nationality. That's the struggle we are involved in, is to complete the question of nationality. What is the nation? Someone gives you a pen and say, go on the board and define your nation. What's the nation? You draw Congo. That's not good enough. You go define what is the nation, which means what has to be freed for all of us to be free. If Congo is free, in fact, it's impossible to free Congo without Rwanda being free. In fact, people who follow what's going on between Rwanda and Uganda and Congo can begin to say that. Because you need to solve the question in the Congo. At the same time, you go solve that problem in Rwanda and Uganda. You have to smash opportunism in Rwanda and Uganda in the Congo. You cannot solve the Somali question if you don't solve the Kenyan question, because now they have an economic plan. They want to get the gas and the oil from Africa, from Somalia, through, and from Sudan, to go through Uganda, through Kenya, and they have to control Somali. They have to control it. And they can't control Somalia without Kenya, without Uganda, without Ethiopia. They're all in it. So Somali wants to be free, cannot just say free Somali. They have to make sure Kenya is free, Ethiopia is free, Uganda is free. So it's really interconnected. If you don't understand that interconnection, we're going to lose. We're going really to lose. There is no doubt about it. So that's why we say from the very beginning, our struggle is struggle to free Africa. And our mission is to do what? To win every African from every country to become an African internationalist. So we can have Congo front of an African revolution, Uganda front of African revolution, Somali front of African revolution, South Africa front, of course Jamaica front of African nationality. Guess what? We live in England. We are not in Africa, are we? So we want to have an England front of the African revolution. So you can't just say, oh, I'm not joining you because you're not doing anything in the Congo. People say that to us. But they forget, number one, the premier donor, number one, bilateral of Congo is England today. It's not Belgium. If Kabila is in power today, it's England. It's England today. So, and well, many of us are here. What are we going to do about it? Kabila must go, yeah, we have that slogan. But what about the regime that's here that's working towards that? Africa is in the Congo now. What are we going to do about it? You see, so the Africans in the United States must have a relationship, just from Congo, for example, with the Africans in the US, because Africom headquarters is in the US. That's where it's coming from. I just want to say that because I really want us to begin to be able to see that you need an African plan. That's basically what I'm trying to say. If you're going to win, you must have an African plan. If you don't have an African plan, you're going to lose. And everybody's going to Africa, who is against Africa, has an African plan. That's basically the essence of the point that I was trying to make. But having said that, I really want you to grasp this. Imperialism, the power of Europe and America is over. Yeah. Is over. You can say white power. If you say white power, some people say the Luwezi in their groups, they are too extremists. They say white power. Okay, let's say the power of Europe, because it's not your power, it's power of Europe, isn't it? So power of Europe and the US is over. Is over. What's the problem? China. This understanding is not in the brain of African people. It's not. 99% of Africans believe US is invincible, or Europe is invincible. They believe things will always be the same, never change. That's the problem we have right now. Their power is over. China understand it, Venezuela understand it, Iran understand it, Egypt understand it, many people in the world understand it. That the power, put it this way, they cannot fix the euro. They cannot bail out Greece. You saw it. They can't bail out Greece. They can't bail out, what's that country? Iceland. They can't. If they can't bail out Greece, what does that mean? They can't bail out Spain. Spain is bigger than Greece. They can't bail out Italy. They know that. And the days of control for Asia by the United States is over too. When I say over, it might not be tomorrow, but in the long run, they cannot control Asia. It's impossible. They know that. They really know that. So the problem is Africans. What is in our brain? And I see African president, like from Ivory Coast and another country, I don't remember, Senegal, going to France to ask for money. You're begging for money from the wrong person who doesn't have money. But that's what's happening. So that takes us basically to the question, why we're here. What we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is simple. Most of you, those who came from the Congo community, you already know the demonstration took place for I don't know how many days, and and there was no result. But you know what? There was no result because the whole African nation was not there. That's one of the tasks you need to do. You go draw lessons from your own struggle. No, we need from books from your own struggle. Why I didn't get a result? I demonstrate every day because we didn't take the whole nation with us. Is it possible to take the whole nation, the whole African nation with us? Of course it's possible. For that to happen, you need to have particular organization, particular worldview. That's what we're trying to do. What we're trying to say is that action will continue to take place. People always demonstrate against what they see as the problems. That's not what we're about. What we're about now is what? Win people to what? To revolution. Win people to revolutionary understanding. That's what we're trying to do. No revolution, Africa will never stand up. Win people to that. Why want you to be a revolutionary? For the simple reason that the peoples, when they're involved in their own struggles, they will never come to a revolutionary conclusion. They will not. People always come to conclusion based on what they perceive as the problem. Our problem was Mandela to go. Mandela got, we satisfy. Our problem was one vote, it's a one person, one vote. That's what the masses do. The masses don't fight for ideas like that. The masses fight for what they see as the future for their families. That's what they do. But revolutionaries have the obligation to tell the masses, don't stop there. You can go far, you can go higher. And for that to happen, we need new leaders. We need leaders. That's what's missing in the African community. Leaders, people who can go anywhere. We can say, Likai, go this way, Makola, go that way, go to this town. Within a month, Makola builds a new organization. People you can drop them anywhere, any village, they'll build a revolutionary capacity. That's what Africa needs. No one, no two, a million maybe. We need many of that. And this is our primary job. That's basically what we're trying to do. And I believe, when I see young people, and I see women coming to meetings, that's great. Because they're going to be part of those people going to shape the Africa of tomorrow. And that takes us to Nicolas Sarkozy and what's happened to France. Because I know this guy in France, François Hollande, just appointed his new cabinet, and half of the members of the cabinet are women. And the press even joking, calling that gynocracy, or genocracy, I'm not sure how you say that in English. What do you call it? Genocracy? Something like that.
Just pronounce it in French.
Genocracy, yeah. Because half of the members of the cabinet are women. But that's fair enough. You can do that. But what is our problem? Our problem is what? It's national oppression. Africa is an oppressed continent, and African people are oppressed nation. So if François Hollande comes to power, it does not mean the relationship between France and Africa will change, because you saw Africans in Paris with the flags. They were happier, more happy than white people, stuff like that. And I've got a picture, it's in a computer somewhere in my house there, or the newspaper. Africans can't contain themselves. He's crying. Finally, Sarkozy is gone. But what do you do? Simple, what you do. What you do is this. They're saying François Hollande is the second socialist after Mitterrand to win power. So Mitterrand won power in 1981. And in between there was somebody else, but he was the prime minister. It's Jospin. You can leave Jospin out. But if you put Hollande, yeah, you filming it? My boy, I'm writing like a doctor. Come on, read it. Hollande, so that's 2012. But what we need to do is simple, look at the history. What is the history of socialists? That's what you do, just like a doctor. They'll ask you, how long you've been having this fever? And you say, 3 years ago, and the doctor will be mad with you. It's only now you're coming to see me. The same way, we had socialists in power since 81, at least. And then we still believe Hollande will be different from Mitterrand. You remember Sankara?
Yeah.
Who killed Sankara?
Mitterrand.
Mitterrand killed Thomas Sankara. We love Sankara. These guys killed him. So basically what we're trying to say, France has its interest in Africa. What is France's interest in Africa? Number one, you heard about colonial pact. Colonial pact. Colonial pact. Colonial pact, de Gaulle, the French president some time ago, General de Gaulle, when he realized that France couldn't control Africa anymore, that independence was a must, what he did, he made a deal after the president. He said, okay, I'll give you independence, but this is what you should do. You should have one currency, the CFA, and the CFA is printed by France, controlled by France, the interest rate, everything is set by France. And no African president, no one can purchase, can make business outside without France. For example, Ivory Coast sells cocoa. Ivory Coast can't sell cocoa directly to China or somebody else. They must sell it through a bank account set up by France. And France, every time Ivory Coast sells cocoa for 100 francs CFA, France gets 65 francs CFA out of 100 CFA. They say it again, because every time you say this, people think like we're trying to be anti-France. You can check that, it's on the internet, you can check it for yourself. Every time, every African country, there are 14 of them, sells anything in the world market, like cocoa, to make chocolate, France automatically gets 60 CFA, automatically. It's not that they sell it and they pay France, no. When they sell it, straight away, France takes 60. 60 CFA francs. 65.
That's what you've written.
Oh, 65, yeah. Sorry, 65. Thank you. 65. Now, how many left? 35. For giving them good service, France taxed them 15% more. For good service. Commission. You know that?
Yeah, that's the tip.
The English are good at that. Commission. For the commission is 15. So 15 and 65, that's 80, isn't it?
80%, yeah.
So 20 goes to African government. But you know Africans, who is the big man in that country?
President.
The president. He's going to get his cut.
Yeah.
And all his cronies will get a cut. I mean, whatever is left goes to the people.
So why did they accept? I think, why can they? How can somebody accept this?
That's a good question. Anyone want to answer that? Stupid? Okay, I'll tell you, the president of Ivory Coast was a doctor, medical doctor. Can you call a medical doctor stupid?
Yeah, no, I can call it medical doctor.
Also, you have to bear in mind that pretty much what they call neocolonialism is pretty much oppressed. If you look at Thomas Sankara, who stood up against that, and pretty much said it clearly, it didn't last long.
Yeah, but this is quite extreme.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Sankara said it openly. He said he actually had a speech before the African Union. There was an older leader, and he told them, "Listen, I cannot do this by myself. If you guys don't join me, by the next meeting I won't be here." He wasn't there. He said it as openly and plainly as you can say it. I cannot change Africa by myself. I need all of you to jump on me. So that's simple as it is.
Have you heard about this
So
guy?
how does France rationalize, like, what is their argument to taking 80% of something they haven't even, you know...
They don't even make...
There's no argument. They have a gun.
They don't mean... What? Well, that's one of the points. So basically, you heard about France Afrique. France Afrique. You go a lot of images on the internet. Basically, what happens is that for you to be president in Africa, you must be part of the club. Some of them are Freemasons, stuff like that, but they build some kind of structures where they are brothers and sisters. And you can even see the president from Congo Brazzaville receiving some honorary from the white guy, and they call each other brother. You know, and if you're part of that club, you cannot betray your brother.
They call each other, they call the higher up master.
Master. So if you're part of that club, you cannot betray that club. You know, that's how it's set up. And as he said, that's what we call neo-colonialism. You get what you want to get at the expense of your people and the expense of Africa. If you can do that, they'll back you up. And the second point, they give you an army.
No, they got an army.
You know, yeah, the army that was there before independence, it becomes yours. And the army is there to maintain what we call colonial order or imperialist order. Status quo. Status quo, that's how it is. So they have this colonial order. So army, police, you have propaganda, all that. a system in place to make sure that if you're young, you're dynamic, you're intelligent, you go to university, they win you to serve that system. They come for you. By the time you start doing your PhD or you get your master, somebody in that university will come to see you. If you've been in university, you see what I'm talking about. They'll come to see you. They'll drop letters in your mailbox, in your bedroom. They do all that kind of stuff. They invite you because they know you are your prize. Why don't you work with us? They'll get you. And that's what they do. You go make your own mind, you want to work with them or you against them. That's how it works. And when you join that, that's it. They're going to protect you, they're going to make sure, they're going to introduce you to those places, etc., etc. So basically what I'm trying to say, the struggle, what Africans have to realize, François Hollande is part of this. So he's not one of us, that's for sure. And secondly, people are asking us questions, but François Hollande is a socialist. We said before in some of the meetings we did here, we said Mobutu created a political party in the Congo. The name of the party was what?
MPR, Mouvement Populaire de la Révolution.
And the R stands for?
Revolution.
Why? When Mobutu came to power, revolution was on the ascendancy. Everywhere in Africa, everyone was talking about revolution, including the Congo. So, what do you do? Fight the red flag. You also come for the red flag. So people say, oh, every red flag, every red flag. But this guy is from my clan. I joined him. It's easier. See what I'm saying? So, the socialist, basically, of François Hollande is a socialist. We call opportunists. Just like Mobutu. Just to make sure they can confuse their own workers. Instead of workers developing their own consciousness to be independent, so they join them. But there's a difference between the socialists, François Hollande, or Barack Obama. He's a part of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party in the US is supposed to be on the side of the workers, but it's not. Just the same way. So, but the most important thing we want to say, before we stop this, is that what we want Africans to realize, change is going to happen because we are organizing to make that change. We need to have our own plan for change. What do we want? We want to be free. We need to come up with our own plan. You can't just expect China to go to Africa and say, oh, China investing in Africa, that makes us better. Oh, China is good for Africa. No, you become strong, you become powerful because of your own motion, your own objective, your own movement, your own goals, your own self-reliance movement getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So the same way, François Hollande has to be put there by Africans, so Africans shouldn't expect nothing from François Hollande. So what we're trying to say, that's what the point I was trying to make in the beginning. As we're talking now, the world is in a state of motion. There is a threat. We call this equilibrium. Another word being used is balance. This is the most important moment in the whole world history. Right now as we're talking. The colonizers, the President of France, the President of the US, of Britain, don't know what's happening tomorrow. They can't listen to Cameron. What did he say? So for you, it's time to make up or break up. But if he has a solution, just say it. But he can't because he does not know what to do. And the reason they don't know, and we know, not because we are more smart than anybody else, because we understand what's the problem. The problem is what we call parasitic capitalism, which means the origin of a power for Europe and America is being challenged by the people who made them powerful. What I'm trying to say is that US, Australia, white people in general, white nation became powerful because they were able to dominate other people, other nations. Now, those people now are in motion too. And then, because they're in motion, achieving power at the expense of Europe and America is creating crisis for them. But they can't say it fully. Why they can't say it? The ideology of racism is one. Because for a long time, white people are used to rule the world. You'll see that. They are used to rule the world. Now, if you read some of the newspapers, some intelligent white people start saying, we need to get used in sharing the world. Basically, what we're trying to say, we need to help our people to come to the conclusion, to reality that Europe and white people cannot rule the world as they used to. That's something new. And more than that, if you listen to the crisis of Europe, for example, they start talking of the possibility of the crash of the euro. But if the euro crashes, what does that mean?
End of Europe.
The pound will follow. The dollar will follow. What's going to happen? I don't know when it's going to crash. But listening to them, they begin to expect it. And we the Africans, what should we expect? That's what we're saying right now. Number one mission for every African who has a conscience and will understand is to begin to get themselves become familiar with what we call principles of revolution. What's a revolution? How do you make a revolution? We should, it will not be on the TV. You have to study that. You're going to become a revolutionary. That's basically, I would say, my final message to everyone here. If we're going to have a future, it's going to be a revolutionary future. Africa cannot join the parasite because all the parasites feed off Africa and black people. That's how it is. Parasitic capitalism feeds off Africa. Then you cannot be a parasitic capitalist because you need to steal gold, oil for somebody else. Where Africans will go and steal gold and oil from somebody else? You can't do that. So Africa has a special mission in the world. It's to be revolutionary, which means end parasitic capitalism. I'm sure you understand when I say parasitic capitalism. We're not talking about capitalism. We're talking about parasitic capitalism. There are two concepts. Capitalism is when you work for Tesco, or you go to Renault, or you get a job, you go to a factory, you produce a bag, they pay your salary. With your salary, you buy a house, pay a mortgage, stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about what makes capitalism capitalism. The coltan in the Congo was not made in the factory, was it? And they didn't pay these people in the Congo. Slavery, Africans were not paid. That's what we're talking about. Having resources that you didn't make, but that would determine your life. That's parasitic capitalism. And this is the problem. And that's why we Africans have to have our own plan. Not tomorrow, today, Africa need to get organized and build our organization. I'm not saying you should live where you are. What I'm trying to simply say, revolution has to become the thing of the present. That everywhere Africans should be concerned, that they don't answer the revolution, or they're not part of the revolutionary movement. That's how it should become. What do you know about revolutionary principle? That should be the discussion at home. Young people in particular. Otherwise, you will not have a future. You will not have a future at all. And that's basically where we are. And our organization, basically, I can say, is making a tremendous contribution. That's why, I don't know how you're going to talk about this on the agenda, about the ALD, stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. That's where basically the efforts we've been making, trying to reach out Africans everywhere. And we have had some success. That now you go Africans in this room, from Congo, from Ghana, from Guinea, from Jamaica. If you come to Paris, you're going to see Africans from Eritrea, Africans from Senegal, Africans from Ivory Coast, from the United States. Now we have the ability to go to Bahamas. If you want to come with us, go to Bahamas. We have the ability to go to Colombia. So we're going to build a worldwide movement. And if we do that, it means that the struggle, that's one place. If I take Congo as an example, if there's a struggle in the Congo, here, if there's a strike, and the strike in the Congo is supported by all African people around the world, that strike cannot fail. That's what I'm trying to say. You need to have a strategy that will determine your freedom. We have not had a strategy for a long time. When I say strategy, I mean scientific strategy. People sat down, discuss, make plans, change plans, the plan is coherent and stuff like that. So the African plan we're developing is the plan that will say, if we're going to sell our diamond, we're going to struggle for nobody in Africa to sell diamond as Angolan or Namibian or Botswana or Congolese. We don't want that kind of stuff. We're going to sell our diamond as Africans. Why? If you sell as Angolan, they will go to Botswana and buy it from Botswana. And the crook in Botswana will sell it any damn price, isn't it? But if we have only one African diamond market, you can't sell it anywhere. All Africans are watching. We will know the price and when it's being sold, but how much is it? And the money is for us. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's African plan. So stop all this selling banana as a Jamaican. I mean, it's crazy, absolutely crazy. And this is our future. But for that to happen, you, the young people, when I say young people, I mean, people will say, not that old, is it? That's basically what we need to do. go out there, win people to, there's a new philosophy out there, there's a new message, there's a new plan to free Africa. And I believe we have that plan. The only question is, where are the revolutionaries to build that power? That's basically the essence of what I was going to say. I know my colleague didn't tell me by the time.
Yeah, it's me.
So you should tell me to shut up.
You know? No, so in 4 minutes you should stop.
4 minutes?
Yeah, you should start. Yeah. 4
Okay.
minutes, yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, if I have to add one more thing is, you know, what we need to do is we can't just talk about freedom with our resources, with our money, isn't it? That's where other people wait for us. These black people, they can talk, but they're going to manage. We wait for them. When they finish talking, they will have no money to put in practice. No, we're not doing that. We want to begin a new culture, and we're going to start it now. Not tomorrow. We're going to start a culture of self. We want African patriotism to play a part. For example, you have this stuff. We're going to struggle hard for everyone to have it. No buy a chain from Argos or whatever. Buy it from ourselves. Stuff like that. We all eat, don't we? We have to create a new culture. We're not going to eat every day from McDonald's or somewhere else. We're going to say once a month, we're going to eat revolutionary food. We make the food and we mobilize people. Let's say you mobilize 100 people to buy our own food. And we say we go young men and young women who can cook. And we cook ourselves. We do it every month. If you save for £10, every month you guarantee to have what? £1,000. Yeah. Something like that. More than that, we begin to create jobs ourselves. Because we need to create jobs ourselves. We cannot talk about freedom and expect people to respect us, seeing us in the morning in the job center looking for a job. People should say, I've never seen them in the job center. That's good. Or in fact, they have their own staff. That's what we need to do. You know what the imperialists are saying? They're saying, Africa, generally speaking, might not be hit so hard when things crash down. You know why?
Because you're ready.
Because Africa is past its capitalism. This is where they take stuff. So they didn't connect us in their banking, you know, this computer stuff. In Africa, it doesn't exist. So when the thing comes down, Africa will suffer differently. When it takes South Africa, will suffer like here because everything in South Africa is computerized, stuff like that. So they say, maybe if you're going to survive, you should be in Africa. That's what some white people say. So you go to Africa and invest, you build stuff. And trust me, in Angola, this year, the number of Portuguese has moved from 10,000 to 100,000. Just from January to April. Because they're going to say, if I'm going to survive, you go to Africa. So what I'm trying to say that right here in London, we're going to begin to build a self-reliance economy. We can do that. People can speak French. We should teach French. People can speak Swahili and other languages we have. We should teach that. But we should sit down, develop our own economy. We have to do that, our own economy, because we need to have offices. Remember, the revolutionary organization must represent the people. And people come to you, you don't have an office, you don't have a party, stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say, we entering a new era of urgency. Not just talking, but urgency where we put things in practice. And I'm convinced in the next 6 months you will see for yourself where we're going to be. But that's how we are going to move. And somebody's going to talk about some fundraising we're going to do this month. And you should see that fundraiser not as a one-off, but at the beginning of something new. That's what we want to do. But it would depend on your belief and your participation. If you really want to build a new Africa, you know, or you want to keep the old Africa way, just a few of us have some education, few of us have some money you can send to your families. You playing the big man to your family. You know, that's an example of neocolonialism. You know that? The people can't do nothing until you do something. That's neocolonialism. That depends on the big man, the big brother, the big sister in Europe. As opposed to your brother and sister go to work in Africa. Every month he's paid his salary because he worked. And when he meets you, he's as a brother and sister. We put something together, we talk, we do something else. As opposed to, send me some of this. That's neocolonialism relationship. And we seem to be happy with it. See what I'm saying? And what I'm trying to say, all these are the past. Every struggle you see around the world there, Tunisia, Egypt, everywhere, is a struggle to throw away this bad stuff, humiliation, indignation, stuff like that. And when you see the Obama, all these guys, the lottery, you see the big brothers, all that, that's the past. They cannot show you the future. How can you believe watching Big Brother is the past? It's the future. There is nothing good in that. They're quarreling, there is no principles, stuff like that. Eastern, there's no principles. The dad going after the girlfriend of his son, stuff like that. You can't watch that and come out of it as a good person. You'll be corrupted. Oh yeah, you will become Eastern man. That's the truth. You become like one of them. That's what they're giving to you, because they want you to be one of them. Because if you're correct, if you're good, you will become a revolutionary. You will start thinking like Lumumba, like Kimbangu, like Malcolm X, like Ho Chi Minh. People have principles. People say, I don't count that much. My people count more than me. I can't stand this oppression. In Pekam, children have to eat paper. They draw apple on the paper and pretend the paper is an apple and eat it. That was on the TV.
In where?
In Pekam. That's how people are poor. And you know the amount of food being thrown away in England every day?
Tons.
Tons. So basically that's a word of the past. We want to build a new world.
It's time now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's time. So, yes, world. So if there is a contribution or a question, or we can have some discussion and move on.
I was wondering, as in, with the plans we have for the organization, how would
Sorry,
you,
with what?
with the plans we have
Plans,
for the organization of building offices and having our economy and everything, how would we be able to do it if we maybe have our academics or our jobs or things like that? How would we be able to pull out and have this centralized organization? How would we be able to give the time needed when we also have other things?
That's a very good question. Like now, this meeting is called by the Patrice Lumumba Coalition. Yeah, we are Patrice Lumumba Coalition. Now, some of us are the members of what we call African People's Socialist Party. And you go to African Socialist International as an example, because this is like in England, yeah? In Germany, you have this, APC Germany, all of us, we form what we call the ASI. We have what we call it update, like in Sierra Leone, all African People Development Empowerment Projects. These dealing with childcare, farming, stuff like that. And it's just, it could be anywhere, just Sierra Leone as an example. Now what we do in terms of centralization, first we say, I think this is probably the most important point. Everybody knows Europe and America and other nations steal African resources. Everybody knows that. But usually when we say resources, what do we mean? We mean diamond, coltan, stuff like that. But what we don't put into is what? Humans. That's the number one resource. Not that they stole us. You and I being here, they just use a different word, immigration. But the same way, I didn't leave Africa because I wanted to, because they starved you and then they forced you to leave. So theft of human resources is number one.
The brain.
The brain. So now what we're trying to do in our movement, that's what we begin to do, is we want to know what is our capacity in England? What is our capacity in Sierra Leone? What is our capacity in Germany? And if we know our capacity, then we can centralize it. We can say, we want, for example, to build an organization that makes clothes. And we all know where the tailors, all the good skills are. You put them together, then you can have an African clothing company. It's made of all the best Africans in design, stuff like that. And you put them together, then they can definitely be able to produce something that's going to be higher in terms of quality, because it takes all the brains. It takes all the experiences. That's where we're trying to move. And it does not stop every organization doing what they're supposed to do. Every organization has its mission to carry, particularly. But in general, we also have a general mission to carry. without which none of these organizations will be able to do the work they need to do. Does it make sense what I'm saying? And we're saying the African intellectuals, the know-how belong to Africa. If you go to PhD, it's not yours. It belongs to the people. It belongs to Africa. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have to get into a struggle to tell people, I know you're a scientist, I know you're an engineer and this and that. We want your skill to benefit our people. So what we need to do, wherever we are, we need to have programs where those engineers, sometimes we can ask those scientists to build the programs because they're the ones who have the know-how. You know, something like that. But for that to happen, we need to build institutions to allow that to happen. So this is just one example of that institution. Is anyone? If you want to make contribution, you know, feel free. Feel free. If one can say something, feel free to say what we're going to say here.
I want to mention something because it kind of came up when you mentioned it earlier regarding the fact of the leadership crisis. That may be one of the reasons why, you know, our so-called revolution has failed.
Yeah.
I was having an interesting conversation with someone last night regarding the topic.
Yeah.
And he said that, I think saying that we have a leadership crisis in the sense of we lack a leader is not really an accurate diagnosis of the problem. He said the best way to illustrate that is, say Hitler was a bad person. Nobody's going to argue with that, so to speak, or most people can agree on that. Yet nobody can say that he wasn't one of the greatest leaders the world has seen last century. What was wrong was the ideology. And I think that's what Africa is facing, because if you look at the ability of some of our pastors, politicians, and so on to move the crowd, they definitely have leadership skills. And there is plenty of them. The trouble is, the ideology is just not there. It's just not used in the right way. There is a lack of orientation. And I think that is also very crucial to bring forward.
Yeah. Thanks for that point. This saying from Hitler, when you say Hitler was a bad person, Hitler is used by all Europe as the English they use the word boogeyman. Boogeyman is that? Boogeyman. So you want to say, oh, racism, what? You bring Hitler, that's the bad face of it. Oppression, genocide, you bring Hitler's face. But the problem is, the word genocide was created when the Jews were murdered. But when Africans being murdered, even Leopold Séguin of Belgium killed 10 million, you know, our people in the Congo. The word genocide wasn't used. And you can't tell me Hitler was worse than Leopold II. Hitler just did what Leopold was trying to do. But the only thing Hitler did it against white people, that's all. They say to Hitler, you broke the rule. Don't kill white people that way. Kill the Arabs, you know, the Africans, everybody. But don't kill our people the way we kill the Arab people. That's the only thing Hitler did. That's it. So Hitler is not the starting point. That's why we don't agree with the concept of fascism. You go hear people saying fascism. Nobody calls Leopold II fascist, but they call Hitler fascist. You know, it's colonialism, but turn inside out. Instead of being outside, but it's inside. That's the only thing. But on the question of leadership, it reminds me of the question of role model. They can, you know, present you somebody like who's in the parliament, who's this guy, Lemmy. You know, he studied law. He went to one of the best universities in this country, so they say, in Oxford. They'll bring him into schools, role model. But this is not a problem. The problem we have is that from the death of the Black Revolution, when it was crushed, you know, different places, US, Africa, and so on, what we saw is what? The rise of opportunism. Rise of opportunism. So when they say leaders, they don't use the right word. They mean opportunists. They mean which Africans agree with status quo, and they present them as leaders. Leaders are the ones who solve the problems with the people, with informed, educated people, not the big man. You go and tell people, I want this, I want that. The people don't know what you're talking about. They just do that because the chief says so. No, we're not about that. We're about everyone being intelligent, everyone being clever. Give the information, allow everyone to grow so everyone can speak with informed opinion. That's what we're about. That's a revolution. Everybody's informed. Nobody's stupid. Everybody gets educated. Every week, one political education. If we are well organized, there should be political education every single day. You go to school, children, our children get 10 minutes political education. That's what the schools do in the US. They give you the pledge, the US pledge.
That's right.
That's not political education. They want to brainwash our children. We should replace political education every single day. So these are other opportunities. And the problem we have in our community, every black community, every single one, no exception, what they call leaders, they are the opportunists. And the problem is to turn opportunities upside down. That's how we say we go back to Lumumba. That's how we call ourselves Patrice Lumumba Coalition. Remember? He came from the US, Lumumba. He had a trip in the US. He comes back in the Congo, and he goes for a meeting. I'm not sure if it was a press conference or meeting. He said, they offered me millions to sell Congo. He said, I will never sell Congo for millions, you know. And the birds in the US said, this guy, we can't buy him off, so we better just kill him. And that's struggle opportunism. You can't sacrifice the interests of Africa because you're going to be the big man. They're going to give you 10 cars. I don't know what they're going to give you, stuff like that. We don't want that, you know. So basically, the struggle is struggle against opportunism. And that's why we say we need to build new type of society, of relationship, where there are principles. And then those principles need to be studied, understood. So you become a woman, a man of principle. Whatever he says, that's what you're going to do. Whatever you do, that's what you say. But you must share those principles with the people, revolutionary principles. You know, but that's something else. We're going to have a space to organize for that. But yeah.
So, can I just take it a step back?
Yes, please.
The gentleman here asked regarding, you were saying you were saying that us as people were like the #1 resource. What he was saying, what he was asking is that, how do we back, sorry. What I want to find out is, okay, for instance, I'm an engineer and I'm an expert in my field and I'm African. How do you motivate me or how do you get me to join this, what can I call it? Yeah, the organization of all Africans coming together and creating something that is for us. Because
how can we take her from her time?
Exactly.
The time. How can she leave the time that she's using to do what she's doing and then come and do it? I think, would it be like a full-time thing? How would she be able to?
See, you're even like taking it a step. Me, it's not even that. It's not even an issue of time. It's just how do you get me interested? Because I feel like there's a massive African community all across Europe and the US, all over the world. How do you get each individual so passionate about Africa that we would want to do something that is for us? Because I feel that's the biggest struggle. I feel like we have experts everywhere in the field, but even for me, if I'm honest myself, how do you motivate me to attend the meetings? How do you motivate me to come and say, yes, I'm good. I see that there's a need for us as Africans, but how do you get me committed or passionate enough to want to be part of something? That's my question, because the question of time, I think that's already if you're sold into it. But what we need to realize sometimes is that we all know about what's going on in Africa, maybe not in depth, but we all know, and we know that, oh, there's something wrong, something needs to be done. But then again, it's kind of like, yeah, I know something needs to be done, but we don't do anything. We sit back. We will have a debate about it. We will attend these meetings. And then we sit back, like when the elections was going on, we saw the Congolese community, everybody was out and they were doing everything. But then after a while, it kind of settles. Everybody, you get back into your old routine. So my question is just, how do you get us motivated and keep us there so that we will have this organization together and we can have something that is just for Africans?
Okay. Anyone want to answer that?
I'm trying to answer. You know, the fall of Europe will play a part in terms of getting intellectuals to join something that is independently African. Yeah, that's one part. You know, because unemployment will solve the crisis of getting and also the urgency of survival. You know, people like now we tied to the Western economy. So now we know the next Friday there's a wage coming, you know. Once the West is down and we know that there's no wage coming, we'll look for something independent. I mean, that's what I see.
But wouldn't that be, I understand that, but won't that be already too late? Like, if we have to wait until things get that bad for us to start? Isn't that already too late? Because I don't.
Anybody else before you? Go ahead.
Well, I think there's like one thing that I would like to say regarding motivation is everyone has their own motivation. You can't force someone to do something. If they see the need, it's down to them to react to it, and which is, you know, I mean, yes, there are ways and things, there are incentives. You know, you could say, okay, we have a proposal for you, and the person can look at it and say, brilliant, I want to work in that. You know, you can put some money, some structure. There's various incentives you can put, but at the end of the day, when it really comes to motivation, it has to come from here.
Well, that's just it. That's what I'm saying.
But you can't force that someone.
How do we do that? Because if it's so dependent on the individual, how are we going to have this thing here? Because you might get 10,000 people across the world who are, yeah, they're interested, but they're not motivated.
What's your name,
they're
sister?
not gonna Cindy.
Cindy, I think we do understand the thing. We're trying to say, we're going to come back. Somebody, what do you?
I was just going to say, I think the answer to that question is going to come from sisters like Cindy, forces like Cindy.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because you know what's motivated you to be here as well. But I think that also we also have to be realistic in understanding that not everyone is gonna feel motivated in that way. But what motivates everyone is motion.
Right on.
Because we can't, like you said, sit down and wait for a situation to happen. So what has to happen is we have to be prepared for when that situation actually occurs. For when those same forces that you're talking about are like, shit, what the fuck do I do now? I ain't got no job. I ain't got, you know, I lost my position with this foot. But they have to be, you know, we have to be ready in a position to be able to bring them in when they are ready. But also there are going to be forces who do feel like you. And for that, what we have to do, and I think that's what SG Luwezi is going to come to as well, is that's why we have to let them know that there is actually something out there anyway. So even if they don't move at the time, and even there are a lot of forces right now out there in the world, like myself, I didn't know that there was anything out there in the world like the Uhuru movement. I did not know. I thought it had died in the 60s, and for my generation, anything after that would have, just won't be a part of it. But I was fortunate enough to be able to find it. And now I'm an organizer in a movement that has to go out and create other organizers. So.
Yeah. One thing I realized from the Congo community specifically, professional like Eddie Kadi, when they saw people on the move. Now wherever we go, you see professionals join, coming to see, because they never done this kind of thing before. But now they see the people on the move, because people on the move is such a powerful thing. Now, June the 16th, we have sisters from SOAS University organizing, sisters from the West Indies organizing Congo Day, because they saw people on the move. So I think that people on the move will play a big part in what we do here.
Yeah, I think they have an answer for most of it. Unemployment, definitely, will play a role. Motivation, but we use another word for motivation. The word we use. Patriotism. You know what? I would defend the land of my fathers, my mothers, to the last drop of my blood, stuff like that. Patriotism. This is something is injected, is given to the people. And here, we need our artists, poets, spoken word. All people can speak to the soul of black people, black men and women. People can speak to the young, to the old. Have you seen people listen to music and they cry in tears? We want people can touch. Olomide they touch you. When Olomide came, when he emerged on the scene, we were like the teenagers of the time. It was something different. There was no, well, my generation at least, follow Wemba and all that. But Olomide, when he came, he was our guy, because he touched our soul. So I'm saying, so we will need people who can do that. Can you be what is it? Someone who is good in writing pamphlets, someone who is good in writing satirical, all kind of arts. We want them, but we want you to install patriotism. And this is something you must introduce it. One way Lumumba was, successful, because he was able to build what we call Congo patriotism, nationalism. when he spoke, people said, wow, that's really good, as opposed to something else. But this is something we need to work on African patriotism. That's what we're saying. What would you say? The Vietnamese or the Turkish man does not go buy anything in the Jamaican shop. You know that.
Yeah.
Turkish would never, if a Turkish man saw his children go to the Jamaican shop buying food regularly, he would call them aside and tell them off. That's against Islam or something like that. But we don't care because our patriotism is not developed. It's because the opportunists don't want the people to be patriotic. In fact, the masses are always patriotic. But that's what we need to work on that. The motion is definitely true, as the guy said. If the masses are in motion, the people begin to make calculations. If I'm a preacher, if all people in my churches, will go to demonstration, then I have to make calculation. If they see my face in the demonstration, they'll think I'm with them. If they never see me, somebody will say, Pastor, you are Gate. Pastor will be in trouble. And what we saw, pastors coming out, on the TV saying, oh yeah, Kabila Massacre, stuff like that. Because the people are, you know...
2 weeks just before the election, the exact same thing they do all the time. They pray that the election will be peaceful. They pray that God will decide a new leader. And then they came on TV 2 weeks after that. They said there must be bloodshed, we must organize, and because Jesus Christ died. So they changed, within 2 weeks they changed it. The same guy who organized a prayer for Congo to be peaceful and God will decide a new leader was the same guy telling us we must decide our own leader. We pick this guy.
Definitely. So I just want to add one more point here. That's what we're talking about revolution. What we mean is what we call, the French call it état-major. What do you call that in English? Headquarter?
Headquarter.
Headquarter. Let's see, I'm not sure that. État-major, yeah, something like that. We say, the English used to French word, avant-garde. So avant-garde, or you can hardly use elite. Because in any time, in history, in any society, we know there are masses from history. But the plan, what's going to happen, is those who study the phenomenon long enough determine, okay, if we're in motion, we turn left, then we go right, we turn. This is état-major, the headquarters. No, what they call it? It's really HQ, chief of staff or something like that. But basically, what I'm trying to say, Africa has not produced its own revolutionaries. It's an advanced sector of population whose main job, number one job is to make a revolution. They wake up in the morning, revolution. It's lunchtime, revolution. They go to bed, revolution. Africa has not produced it. Africa will never go anywhere if we don't produce that. It's those people that will be responsible for bringing scientific plan in the motion of the people by building the patriotism of the people, you know. And for that to happen, you need to create a specific type of organization. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we call the African Socialist International. We're trying to get the best, you know. That's why I'm having this brother here from Guinea, Bissau, is in the meeting, because Kabal came from Guinea, and he said to us, the struggle for African people must be led by who? The best sons and daughters of Africa. That's the job. The question you're raising basically, what needs to happen? You have to work hard to get the best sons and daughters of Africa in one organization. If you do that job, then he also said, the same Cabral, he said, people don't come to the organization because somebody gives good speeches or somebody say good things. He said the masses come to police organization. Why? You represent their future. So which means that our organization, if we unite as such, we are responsible for making plans. Plans to internationalize Africa, plans to free Africa. We're talking about setting down one market, stuff like that. That's the goal of these people. And we don't have the organization, and we're trying to build it. That's the starting point. If we don't build it, the question you raise will remain questions. But for us to answer that, we need to build that. And one application of that, we're doing what we call the BSI, Black Star Industries. And this meeting will take place on the 4th June. where we begin to discuss basically how we're going to build our own industries across the planet. And it's a groundbreaking project, it's an exciting project, just to see, I can't tell you about that, just to see our possibilities if we put our mind together from here to Brussels, to Senegal, to Congo, to wherever. There's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we can't do. You know, I just want to say that, and basically the answer is in your own hands. You know, you want to be part of that change. You want to be, you know, you heard about Marcus Garvey. He asked a question, just ask by his own way. He said, I look around the world, I don't see men and women of dignity who are Africans. I don't see black leaders, you know, black historians. I don't see black diplomats. I don't see anything that I would say, wow, I want to be like that. And he said, I'm going to make them, go make that happen. And Garvey made Nkrumah, and Nkrumah contributed to making Lumumba. And he succeeded. Although he, you know, he didn't set foot in Africa, but his vision was correct. You raise the question, you're going to work out how you're going to answer that question. But at the moment, you have the benefit not to be alone. We stand on the shoulder of Lumumba, Nkrumah, because they ask the same questions as you. So we're standing on the 40 years of history of ASI, because our organization, although we joined this organization at some point, but we're standing on 40 years of constant struggle to solve the black question, wherever it happens to be. And I can say now, in terms of theory, ideas, we have to solve it. What we're looking for, young brain, people who are ready to say, give me that job, I'll make it happen. That's basically what we're trying to do. Yes, Mr.
Just want to add something to the question she asked about how to get people motivated and committed. Just to educate people, make people realize that we can't accept this system anymore. Make people realize the system, the capitalistic imperialism system. There's such like you mentioned about the CFA. You know, many people don't know. So if people realize that this is the system which is destroying us, they will stand up against that system and be committed and say, no, we can't accept it, we can't take it anymore.
Thank you for that. You know what? That's why I took the newspaper, if I just remind you. You see, what we have to do is win the struggle for ideas. That the news that gets in our homes is our news. No more French news, British news, but it's our news, freedom news. That's the struggle. If you do that, the motivation will be more than 100%. And we have this newspaper. For the first time, we're able to print revolutionary newspaper. You know, no compromise. We want to destroy this kind of system. We don't want it. You know, nobody wants to keep the mosquitoes in their homes unless you're a mosquito yourself. So, if you speak French, we say to you, you say you don't speak French, you speak English, and we turn it over. You know, French. Is that right?
Bilingual. Yeah.
It's a bilingual newspaper. And we want you to write. Everyone has experience in here. What your experience is, you think someone else should know about your experience. Write it, so people can read. You know, when I went to university, I did this, and I had to show against it. Something that will educate people. Just write it. We want everyone to become a writer. We've got young people in Germany making videos. You see on our website, like the one which Jaka has made. You see all the sisters taking initiatives to make the news. That's what we need to do. Make the news. Create the news you want to see that will change your community. So that we create a new news, basically, that people begin to say, oh, why are you watching BBC wasting time? Move to this website. As the Muslim have done. A lot of Muslims watch particular website. They don't waste their time watching all the craps we watch. So that's what we need to go to. You can use the video, you can use your phone, but we need to make news ourselves, and we print this ourselves. And this being sold in France, they can give you a testimony. I don't know if it's this in the program, but I can tell you our people are so delighted to have a newspaper in French. They can read that there is no newspaper of compromise, and it was a great success. You know, and that's what we're going in Paris on the 1st for this minute. It's just part of that. You know, you can make a documentary, make a documentary. You can make it. You can write a piece of theater, make it. Let's try to make that theater happen. You know, stuff like that. Get back, our culture, our music, everything. I know I've talked too long.